Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Tricia Nelson, emotional eating expert, author, and podcast host. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I am so pleased to have Tricia Nelson with us. She's an emotional eating expert, author, podcast host of the Heal Your Hunger show, and she's also been on numerous media outlets, including the NBC, CBS, KTLA, Fox, and Discovery Health. I'm so pleased to have you here today. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So this is a big topic, and we were just talking prior to, the comfort foods and such, but let's start off with, give us a little bit of a story about you.
Sure. Yeah, I was obsessed with food from, as far back as I can remember. Food was an obsession for me, and I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to serve food to other people, go out to dinner. It was all just a big, woohoo, highlight for me. So it was just the way of life. And I didn't really think there was a lot wrong with it until I started packing on pounds, and having a weight issue. And that I did not love. I hated being overweight. And by age 20, I was 50 pounds overweight. So I had a big problem with binge eating and overeating, snacking, sugar addiction, the whole 9 yards. And I couldn't overcome it. I did all the usual things, the diets and weight loss programs and pills and potions and lotions and exercising. And I just couldn't, I did 12-step programs and therapy even, and none of those things really, I'd get good information and I'd get, in control for a little while, but then I'd break out. I'd always go back to it. And that was so frustrating to me. And, my weight yo-yoed. I was not able to purge. I had tried to purge and I wasn't actually able to purge. So I just packed on the weight. And at some point I had lost some weight and I was about to put it back on. I just knew, oh, here we go again, and I was about to go up the scale. And I just thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life, this yo-yoing thing. I can't do it, especially because I've tried so many things. I felt really, really hopeless. And so by the grace of God, I met somebody who showed me how to heal and showed me how to overcome my binge eating. And it changed my life. He changed my life. But what he told me and showed me is that it really is a deeper issue, and that no amount of food shenanigans or machinations are going to work for me. I've got to go deeper and heal at the deeper level. And he showed me how to do that. So that was many years ago. That was in my 20s. I'm in my 50s now. So, but on account of that, my life changed and I was able to stay at a thin weight for the rest of my life, thus far, and stop the roller coaster ride, but more importantly, have peace around food, and to eat like a normal person, and I don't consider myself normal because I'm just not, but I do look and seem normal, to the naked eye. So, and that's really because of that deeper healing. And so what I got to do after that is start to help other people. I worked with my mentor to help other people for decades. And then about 4.5 years ago, I founded Heal Your Hunger to work with women around the globe with their emotional eating, because I really feel like there are so many different offshoots of, there's so many ways of being disordered in your eating. But, to me, the central problem is emotional eating, using food for emotional reasons. However, whether you overeat, undereat, purge, just whatever you do with food, you're doing it for emotional reasons. And so that's really why I focus on emotional eating, because, that's really what we have to heal. And obviously it's the underlying causes that need to be healed. So the fact that I'm free just makes me want to shout it from the rooftops. And I have really put what I do, because I still do it to this day, whatever I teach, I do. But I put it in a very easy to follow system so other people can follow the system and get results from it. It really does. It transforms people's lives. So I feel very blessed, and I'm so grateful you have me here to talk a little bit.
I just love it too, because it's exactly what I say too. I was so elated when I could sit down and have a meal with people and feel completely comfortable. And so, I mean, the with that elation, I mean, there was not even a thought of going back to where I was before. It was just very freeing, like you said. Now, I just wanted to bring up too, you were saying, I've noticed just particularly in the last little while, there's a lot more men. And I won't say that they're getting it. I think they've had it, but not, there's a lot more men coming out and
Yeah.
admitting that they have it as well, like whether it is binge purge, anorexia, or overeating. And it's nice that they're coming out, because it was so closed in, and we kept thinking that, I mean, I'm sure that the numbers were skewed, what we
Yeah.
saw, right? So,
Yes. No question.
so do you help out with men as well, or do you primarily work with women?
I refer men to my mentor, actually, who is a man, and he works with men. And so I just, if I had enough men, I would absolutely create a program for men. It's they're few and far between, the ones who reach out. And so I can't really, I like to work in a group setting, group and some one-on-one, but I find that the group is so powerful, and the mutual support is so, transformational. So if I had enough men, in a heartbeat, I'd teach my system to men, because it works for anybody. And I've had men read my book and just say, oh yeah, I lost 50 pounds from reading your book. I'm like, what? So it's really crazy. But I think by the grace of God, it's, it does have that impact on some people. So, but yeah, I mean, it's whoever suffers with this thing it's hell. It's pure hell. I mean, I hated myself. I hated my body. I was so distorted, I had body dysmorphia, and I had so much shame around my eating behaviors. Like, I just thought, I mean, I used to binge and then throw the rest of the food out because I couldn't eat anymore. I'd throw out whatever, when I was just disgusted and done, I'd throw the rest of the food out and I'd swear I'm never eating that again. And like 3 hours later, I'd be digging in the trash can looking for those cookies that I knew were, you can't forget, we throw cookies out, where they are, they're there. And I would go get them. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm eating out of the freaking trash. Like, that is so disgusting. And I thought I was the only one. And do you know, I did I reenacted, like, I call it garbage eating on YouTube many years ago. And I had like 60,000 hits, because people, it's just crazy. And people were like, oh my God, I've done that too. And it's, we all think we're the only ones who have done these crazy things with food. And we're just so not. It's so common, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I do find with that shame, there's the lies, and somebody said, well, I'm going to lie about this for the rest of my life. And I thought the only problem with lying is if you're not somebody who likes to lie and doesn't believe in lies, it goes against your values. And that in itself doesn't help with that whole turmoil that you're going through.
Totally.
So you're talking about, let's see, you had 3 hidden causes of emotional eating and how to heal them. Can you just give us a quick overview of that? I'm interested.
Yeah. So, people are always, they hear about the term underlying causes. They're like, oh yeah, I know I need to deal with underlying causes, but nobody really talks about what they are, so that's what I like to do in my work, is really, like, I don't focus on food. I mean, I find that anybody who struggles with food and weight in whatever form, they're pretty hyper aware of nutrition and calories and effects of food on their body, because we study it. Like, we're trying to get to the bottom of it, so we're studying it, reading the books, taking the courses. So I really focus on those underlying causes and what drives us to eat in spite of what we know, because we know salads are better, but we always eat the pizza, pizza and ice cream. So I have something called the PEP test, and this is a way of just starting to understand not what food's doing to us, but instead what it's doing for us, because it certainly is serving a function, and so an important function in our lives. So the food, the PEP test is a way to determine what it's doing for us. And the first P in PEP, which is an acronym, stands for painkiller, because food is no question a painkiller for us in the way that we eat it, and bulimia as well is a painkiller, and so we use it as a painkiller. Why? Because we're like, we got pain. life is not easy. It's hard for people, and it certainly was for me. I was overwhelmed by the idea of living. Like how do you pay the bills? How do you have a job? How do you deal with relationships? I mean, I didn't have those skills. I was wackadoodle in a lot of ways, a lot of ways, and so I created chaos. So and pain, and so I had pain, and also just life is painful. People die or get sick, or things happen. We lose jobs and so on. So food for me was a way to just douse myself, in substances that would numb that pain. So sugar and carbs were my main go-to, and they did temporarily numb the pain. So we use food as a painkiller. We also use food as an escape. This is the E in PEP. And what are we escaping from? Well, from all kinds of things, but a lot of it's just our own brains, our sense of worry and fear. Like my experience is emotional eaters are emotional people, and we have very fast thinking minds. Like we overthink everything, and we're worried about everything. We awfulize, that's what I call it. Like our brains go into the worst possible scenarios, and it's like we just need relief from ourselves. And so food is a great escape. Like I got my goodies and I got my favorite TV show, and I'd just be off to the races, and it's like I just want the world to shut out. And since this is the midlife show, I'm going to mention the commercial. I don't know if it was the 70s or 80s, certainly dating myself, but the Calgon Take Me Away. Remember the bubble bath commercial? Calgon Take Me Away. So that was what food did for me. It's like food take me away, TV take me away. Like I can't be in this body, in this head anymore. So that's a big part, the fear and worry is a big driver, and why we want to escape. And the last P in PEP stands for punishment, which is counterintuitive because we think of food as a reward, like we want to eat for a reward. But, by the way I ate, it ended up being a punishment. Like I would beat myself up with food, by overeating and stuffing myself and hating myself. And for those who purge, that's a whole nother, abuse of your body, and hell. And so I would do that to myself. And it's like, I didn't reward myself. I just beat the crap out of myself, And so it begs the question, like, why would I do that time and time again? Why would I do that to myself? And it's really because overeaters are overfeelers, and we feel guilty about everything. We're so hard on ourselves, and we feel so guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this. We're always replaying scenarios in our head. So we're just really hard on ourselves. And so we beat ourselves up with food, and it's not a conscious thing, like, oh, I'm going to go beat myself up now. But it is the result of our obsession with food so often. And, in my experience, that's what we have to start dealing with is, why would I do that to myself? What's that self-hatred about? What is that, that feeling of unworthiness about? So, whether it's pain or fear or guilt, these are some of the emotions that are definitely driving, I think, all addictions in general, but definitely addictive eating.
It's funny because we were talking about obsessions. I mean, they call it an eating disorder. I almost call it like an eating obsession, just like people are obsessed with money, they're obsessed with relationships. And this particular one is really an obsession with the relationship with food in a not healthy way, just like that. So
yes.
Yeah. And the hiding. So there's also about dealing with obsessive food thoughts, because that is definitely a huge part of that. I mean, I think sometimes, 80% to 90% of the day, that's all you're thinking about, that food and calories and all of that stuff.
Yes. I mean, I spent so much time thinking about food and weight. I was obsessed with my weight. Oh my God. How do I cover up my rolls? How do I mean, thank God for like Spanx. like the Spanx company, and spandex, when those those materials came out, I was so grateful because it sort of made me suck in my gut and, smooth out some of those bumps. So, but so I was just as obsessed with my weight as I was with food, is my point. It's like I wasn't eating all the time, but I was thinking about eating all the time. And I was thinking about the effects of my eating, and food on my body. And it just robs us of so much time in our lives, and it robs us of relationships. I'd be thinking about food and not about the people in my present company. And I'd think to myself, if they only knew, I can barely pay attention to what they're saying. And these are my best friends, and partners. And I'm like, and for a lot of people, kids, I didn't have kids, but I hear it from my clients time and time again, like I'm not present with my kids because all I want to do is have them go to bed so I can get out my goodies and eat the way I really want to eat. So it robs us of our relationships, not to mention partnerships. Like I didn't want to have sex. I don't want to be seen, my body in the lights. I wanted the lights off. I didn't enjoy sex. I felt so yucky about my body. I just couldn't relax. And that's a real, buzzkill for a relationship if you don't want to have sex, So, and I'm just so grateful now to not be that way, to be fully functioning and enjoying my body, enjoying, all the sensations in my body, and not having this shame, because the shame is the worst, and I, because I had sexual abuse in my past, which is very common for people with disordered eating, I felt so much shame about my body. And that's part of why I was beating it up so bad, but I thought I was bad, for my sexuality. I thought I was bad. I thought I was stupid. I didn't believe I was smart, and I went to one of the top colleges in the country, but I'm like, oh, I'm an imposter, and I also thought, I was ugly, because I grew up kind of not, I didn't look great growing up. Let's be real. So, I looked kind of like a boy. So it was a real issue for me. Like, I don't know what my mom was thinking. Like I had the ugliest haircut, but, because I did have a weight problem, I just felt so ugly and unattractive, to men. And so, all these things I held as beliefs. I'm stupid, I'm bad, and I'm ugly, and what we think on grows, so that was sort of my operating system. And I would be trying to disprove it all the time, but some way or other, I'd end up proving it, because that's what was at headquarters. Those were the messages at headquarters that were really running the system. So by the grace of God, all that has been healed, not that I'm arrived, I still have more work to do on myself, but it's really beautiful, to be free and to stop hating on ourselves. It's just like, God gave us these beautiful, bodies, these beautiful minds, and hearts. And it's like time to let it shine, time to let it shine. So I'm very, very grateful. I feel very blessed, and I'm grateful to be able to share that with others.
Well, just quickly, it was sort of funny. You said, you're waiting for your kids to go to bed. I have a book that I'm just finishing up, and it's based on my true life story. And I found what I had written when I was in my 20s, and I used to wait, wish my parents would just go to bed so I could. So
Yeah.
as bad as it gets, it's not just the kids; it's your own parents when you're living
So
with them.
true.
Just go to bed. I don't want to spend time with you. And there's only so much time you have with your parents as well as your kids. So
yeah, that's so true. I used to hide bowls, bowls that had ice cream and chocolate in them under my bed. Like it would just sit there. So gross.
So interesting that you said this. And another thing that's really big with, particularly with bulimics, I know that people who lose weight, they get frustrated, who are overeaters because they're doing the yo-yo. But with bulimics, that's one reason why they'll hold on to their bulimia for so long, because they think the minute that I quit, I'm going to gain weight. In all fairness, I did gain some weight, but I gained to the point where that's where my body needed to be at that weight, because I was underweight. Your body, to me, knows the weight you should be. So did you want to speak a little bit to that so we can give some confidence to those who are struggling and fearful of giving it up because they might think they'll gain weight?
Yeah, so absolutely. And I get that fear, and in my experience is we have to let our bodies do what they need to do. Like trying to control or, beat our bodies into submission is not a good long-term plan, and that's what I was doing anytime I like exercise furiously or starve myself or do the things that I did, laxatives, so it's like I was abusing my body because I was willfully trying to make it do what I thought it should do. And, our bodies won't have it. Like they're going to say, they're going to put their finger up to us, like, screw you, and they're going to break down because we're not treating them with respect. So it's really important that we realize like there's a better way. And so my experience is, bulimia, if I weren't binging, I probably wouldn't be purging, so even though it's so vital to stop purging, I do have to address the binging problem, and so it's like, yeah, if you keep binging, you're gonna gain weight, and you're not gonna like the weight that you're at. First things first, stop the purging, because you're totally wrecking your body, and you don't want to be doing that. You don't want esophageal cancer, you don't want stomach cancer, you don't want, all the different ulcers. I mean, there's a bajillion things that happen in our bodies when we beat them up. So the purging has to stop, but you're not done when you stop purging. Like now it's like, why am I drawn to food? Why am I anesthetizing myself with food? So it's a journey. Like it's not a one-stop shop. It's a journey. You stop the thing that's killing you the most, and then you keep doing the soul searching and the work that it takes to just like how do I live? And I think what's really important for people to know is, food is a symptom. Bulimia is a symptom of binging, right? In a sense, I want to change the effects of that the binging has on my body. So bulimia is a symptom of a binging, and binging is a symptom of, what's going on the inside. It's not about the food. It's not about the food, and it's not about the weight, and it's not about the bulimia. Like these are all symptoms that have a root cause. And so we have to sort of take this as our teacher. I mean, food was my tormentor, but it's become my teacher, and by the grace of God, I've done this deeper work, and this is what I take people through to really start healing that self-hatred, that feeling of unworthiness, those feelings that I suck, and all the thoughts in my head. And it doesn't take 20 years of therapy necessarily to do that. So I always tell people, like, you don't have to take, it's not, people always like, oh, underlying causes, I'll go to therapy, but that can take a really long time. And I try to take the guesswork out of it for people. So I have something called the anatomy of the emotional eater, which is 24 personality traits that make up an emotional eater's experience. And these traits have nothing to do with food. These traits have to do with how we show up in life. Okay. And how we show up, when we have dysfunctional ways of showing up in life, we end up creating stress that we then stress eat over. So again, this is going deeper. It's like, I gotta change. Like for things to change, I have to change. For things to get better, I have to get better. So it's not about the symptom. It's about, why am I destroying myself in the first place? Why am I hiding out in food? And what new tools can I develop instead of the bulimia, instead of the binging? Like that's an old coping tool. And speaking of old coping tools, the number one trait of the anatomy of the emotional eater, of all the 24 traits from my research, is people pleasing. So I've never met an emotional eater who wasn't a people pleaser. Okay. It's like, I mean, somebody may be outspoken and bold, but there's still a sort of an insecurity that makes us want people to be pleased with us. And it drives us crazy because we do all kinds of crazy things to get that validation. And this goes way back, it goes back to our childhood, where we didn't have a strong foundation of self-love. or acceptance or validation. Our parents were sick, they were alcoholic or drug addicts or mental illness, had mental illness or had too many kids, wasn't enough love to go around, whatever. Like there's always something, we all have trauma. So, but as a kid, if we didn't get that strong foundation of worth and love, we're going to be seeking it outside of ourselves. And this is a big problem, because even though it might have saved us as a kid to be a people pleaser, as an adult, it doesn't work anymore, because we have to knock ourselves out to get people to be pleased with us. So we have to take on the extra projects, bake the cookies for the kids soccer team, stay up really late, finishing projects, so we can shine. So we do all this extra work. We burn ourselves out. We burn out our adrenals. And then the kicker is that nobody's ever as pleased as we plan on them being. And we're like, what? Like an offhanded thank you? That's it? Do you know what I did? Do you know what I just did? So we're not only like burned out, but we're resentful too. We're like, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe these people didn't do more to recognize me, because we needed that recognition because we didn't have it for ourselves. So what we do is we go home and we have the I deserve it binge, right? Screw them. They're not going to recognize me. I'll recognize myself.
Yeah.
I'll reward myself. So do you see how that has nothing, like people pleasing ostensibly has nothing to do with food, but it creates all the stress and turmoil that we then turn to food to try to quell. And so this is why I often say it's really not an eating problem, but a living problem. And that's where we have to go. We have to stop trying to control food, manage food, obsess about food, and let's dig a little deeper into what's like, how am I living and how can I live differently? And another thing we need to do is start consciously lessening our stress. And we do that with self-care, meditation, prayer, yoga, reading spiritual literature, writing, journaling, talking to people who understand, and we can offload some negative feelings, so these are all things that we have to have. Like, we have to have new tools. You can't just stop the bulimia. You can't just stop the binging. You have to have, like, those are like, we're dependent on those as coping tools. And they're mostly the ones we use. So we don't have a whole lot else, and so what we have to do is build new coping tools. We have to have a whole arsenal of tools, to be able to live life without turning to food. So it doesn't all happen at once, but it is a new way of living that can change our way of eating.
And a great way of living once you do change that. Interesting.
Yes.
Just because you were talking about the symptoms, I just have a quick story of a good friend of mine when we were in college. She was so anorexic, honest to goodness. She was, I think she was 65. It was ridiculous, 68 pounds or something. And of course, went into the hospital with probably, they said, about 20% chance of survival. She did get through it, and she stayed in the hospital. Basically what they did is they had her on IV and everything, and she left the hospital at 170 pounds. So what I said is they put the bandage on. So they didn't deal with the symptoms. They dealt with the cause. They didn't deal with the symptoms, and which led her to become bulimic. So there she's moving into a different, area. So and it's, when we're abusing food, however we're abusing it, we're not healing. No. And that's really what we need to focus on, is healing. Absolutely. This is so much information. I honest to goodness, I could have you on for another 2 hours probably speaking to this, but I love where you're going at. If you could tell our listeners, because I know that there's a lot of people are listening to this, how they can find you, and how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. My website is healyourhunger.com. That's HEAL, healyourhunger.com. And you can access my podcast through that website. Also a link to my book as well. But the book's on Amazon. It's called Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. But you can link it through my website. Also on my website is a quiz, and the quiz is really useful if somebody doesn't really relate to being an emotional eater. On the quiz, you can find out if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between. It's like a 2-minute quiz, but I recommend people start there and take that quiz and find out, and you'll actually get a personalized score, and then you'll get steps on what to do after that. But that's kind of a nice, easy way for people to get started.
That's wonderful. And just speaking to that, the healing too, is you're right. If you're dealing with the inside, that's what happened with me. I dealt with what was going on, and it just seems like everything falls together at that point, because the
Yes.
it does go away as you deal with the cause of it. So again, I really appreciate you being here. Absolutely wonderful guest, Tricia. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you, Lorianne, for your work and your healing journey, and being willing to share it with other people. I know it is so inspirational to so many. So, and I know podcasts are a labor of love. So bless you for doing this. And really, it's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.